Welcome to the July community meetup. This month we are talking about subsites and or microsites. And we're going to be diving into the process around deciding when they get commissioned, how they get commissioned. So it'll be more about almost like governance and process, the sort of workflows of them. We might dive into some technical things, but it'll be mostly around the sort of bigger picture of when to use subsites or microsites, when they've worked, and the sort of challenges around commissioning them. And we've got three people. We're going to have a sort of panel discussion. We're not really going to do screen shares, I don't think. It'll be very much like a informal chat. We've got a few questions, and we're hoping you've got some questions as well. Before we do that, we're going to do a very quick Mentimeter just to get us into the swing of things. First question is really simple. Which do you use most? Which have you created most of? Is it you've got more subsites or microsites, both equally, or you might not be using them yet?
Actually,
Unsurprisingly, most are using microsites. That's what we would expect, just because of the number of microsites that councils are creating. We've got a few not using them yet. Hello, Paul. Welcome. No problem for being late. Do you want to just come on and say hi, just so we can check your microphone?
yep. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you
Can
perfectly.
you
Yeah.
see
Hi,
me
Paul.
okay?
Welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Sorry
can
about
see
that.
you and hear you. No worries. We're just doing a very quick Mentimeter, and then we're going to go into our chat. There's a QR code just on the right there if you want to join. And there is a link in the chat as well if you want to join in your browser.
I
So
can't.
most people, hello, Will,
I
can
was
you
going to
see?
say, yeah, I can. I can't quite remember what the next question is, but we'll get to it. But I mean, really, I'm interested in everybody's answers, but I'm particularly interested in the both equally because you're making decisions about which one you will use, and I'm really interested in how you decide. But we'll get. I think we're going to get to that, aren't we?
Yeah, you could put, it'd be interesting to know the two that put both equally. If you want to just drop that in the chat, that's quite interesting, isn't it? So only
Yeah.
two. Whereas, unsurprisingly, I think the biggest number is microsites. And we do have some people not using them. We've got three both equally now. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one. Maybe, Will, you can just preface the question here. So
Yeah.
we're quite curious to know why you put what you did put and put your council name in your reply if you could. Will, do you want to add anything?
Well, just to explain that a bit more fully. So, if you pick subsites, why did you pick that? How does it work for you? How do they work for you? And same for microsites. If you've got a bit of both, like as I said just a minute or so ago, like why are you doing that, and how do you choose between the two? Do you choose? Do you have like criteria for choosing? Be really good to sort of know, like what's in your thought processes for picking these things. So yeah, please go ahead. Don't ignore me rattling on.
That's okay. Equally, did you say if you haven't
If you
got there
haven't,
yet?
why? Oh yes, sorry, Aaron, do my job for me.
No,
If
that's
you
right.
if you haven't sorry, it's really hot here. If you haven't started or you're not using, then it would be good to know, you know,
Mhm.
is there a reason why you've not started? Is it just low down your list, or is there something about microsites or subsites that mean you can't start? It'd be really good to know. Good to know
Okay,
that.
so we've got a few answers coming in. So one, we don't have the subsites module yet. If you can put your council name in the reply, it's helpful to know. Luton still needing headspace and sign off from SMT on creating the policy to roll out. Someone else has put that we have criteria for choosing, and so far there's a greater need for microsites than subsites.
It'd be great to know that criteria if whoever wrote that would post again with their name.
And that's
Um,
definitely coming up in the conversation today as
it
well.
will
Yeah.
be, yeah.
We use Subsite content type a lot on the main website as they're more flexible than other content types. They're much easier for us to create than microsites. That's from Paul in Haringey. So no dev needed. Right. Yeah. That's the flip side. And who is paying? Can the cost of a microsite be rebuilt? Good question. RBKC don't have microsites, subsites installed yet. Previously, I've used subsites as they're part of the same entity and visually similar, only using microsites where it needs to be separate. Okay. And Kensington and Chelsea have 3 microsites in the process of implementing subsites and recommend this to consider security and governance. Let's scroll a little bit. We're doing time, we've got a few more minutes.
I'm just thinking about, sorry, I'm
Yeah.
just thinking about the rebilling question because
Hmm.
I guess like what are the things that cost money, you know, sort of hosting and support. But if subsites are if you're using subsites, they're part of your main site, then probably the hosting and support would be very minimal cost, probably quite hard to work out. But the creation of that microsite, the time that it takes to do whatever design work is required, whatever content creation, you know, that kind of thing. Microsites are a bit more, you can do more with them. I mean, having worked at Essex and worked on a huge microsite, love Essex, that took a very long time. You know, you can potentially rack up substantial costs if you do a lot, if it requires a lot of effort and thought. So I guess it's like, is your council set up to do rebilling? Do you want to do it? Do you think it helps? If anyone's done that, it'd be really good to hear from you. We tried doing rebilling in Brighton, or at least we talked about it and decided it was more trouble than it was worth. But maybe some of you have got it to work.
What do you mean by rebilling, Will?
So you want a site from us as a digital team. We will work out what it costs us. You will pay us. Will be some kind of internal cross charge. Yeah.
I think we'll come on to that as well in the conversation. I'm going to come on to our last question and then we'll dive into the chat. So Paul, and maybe Paul, you'll come on to this a bit. We recharge for all dev time spent on microsites.
Be good to know how that works.
Yeah. So Will, do you want to introduce this question?
So you've answered different things to previous questions. You know, you may well be using subsites, microsites, or you're not doing it at all. What's the one thing that we can do as a local Drupal team to help you, whichever situation you're in? So if you're using subsites, what do you need? If you're using microsites, what do you need? What can we help you with? If you're not doing this at all, what could we provide? What's the one thing that we could help you with, please?
And there's a wider community, so it might be you know, more sessions like this, more focus on like what subsites do, how to work with subsites, or more show and tells of microsites and the sort of nitty-gritty of setting them up.
Is it more functionality?
More functionality. It could be on the governance side. The JVIC and microsite policy template. I think I'm hopeful we might be able to provide that after this session. Provide example use cases for both. More a definition of when each should be used. Now that is in the pipeline. Will's working on that at the moment.
I mean, it's part of the reason we're running this session is to hear from you, because it used to be very cut and dried in the past, but it's not so much because of subsite extras these days. We've got a bit more flexibility in what you do and why.
That's interesting. Learn how to set up themes for subsites. Well, subsites a ballpark cost of the module MVP and what this includes.
I guess it's installing the modules. So I don't know how you would, whoever wrote that, how would you do it? Would you ask your agency to do it?
Yeah, well, sorry, we're just so Sanjeev from RBKC.
Hi.
Hi, yeah. So we're in the process of getting a quote for installing subsites. It's a bit high because they're putting a few overheads in for extra features. And the thing we're saying to them is, can you give us a granular quote, which is including just an MV fee just for out of the box installation without any wheels and whistles and bells.
It'd be good to know what the whistles and bells are.
Yeah,
like maybe we could do that
servers,
as a separate
yeah,
conversation at some point.
Sure.
Can I come in just for a moment on the subsites thing? Mark on here. There seems to be lots of comments from people like how much would it cost to get the subsites module, and we don't have the subsites module. Subsites comes by default with local gov Drupal. It's impossible to not have it. So just be careful if people are charging you for subsites in terms of just turning it on. In terms of the design around a subsite, maybe that's more, but everyone should have the module already. Everyone's homepage is more than likely, and I know there are some accounts that don't use that content type to create their homepage, but pretty much everybody's homepage is using the subsite module. The local gov demo homepage uses subsites. So, and you can see all the things we have there. It's got the ability for single column, double column, triple column layout. It's got the ability for background colors. It's got all the different media types and image and all that. So all of that is there. Maybe you might need to have a harder conversation with your supplier if they're trying to charge you more than you think you should be. Or maybe your supplier doesn't understand all of the features that are available in subsites. Or maybe it's a good thing you came to this talk and now you can come back with this knowledge.
It doesn't include, it's slightly confusing because there's an extra module called Subsite Extras handily, which isn't included, and you have to install that. And then there's a bit of wrangling to get it to work. It's not just easy as just switching it on.
I've just popped a YouTube link in there for how to use that Subsites Extra module as well, so you can click on that.
There you go. You could look at that and then work it out, I guess. We could talk about where we want to go with that later if you like.
Thanks.
Yeah, Mark, in the Miro board, there's an area to the right for useful links and things, the things we already have. So if you drop that in, and then part of my job after this meetup will be sharing this information out.
Yep. Thanks, Aaron.
All right, brilliant. Thanks, folks. So this is really useful for us. It sort of helps us know what's on your mind. I'm going to stop the Mentimeter right now.
There was one that's previewing an entire site. Did the person mean a subsite or a microsite? Because the way I've seen microsites done is that they're probably just behind a password.
Yeah.
That you could just send to somebody, so you could just like go and see the whole thing. That's certainly how I've done it in the past. Subsites are a wee bit more tricky because they're actually part of your main site, and we've got preview link, which kind of does it, but it's just a bit patchy here and there. So whoever wrote that, be really good if you just drop me a line, just send me a message and tell me what it is you're trying to achieve, because I know preview link's just not quite where it should be. It should be better, and that might be the problem. So yeah, let me know.
Yeah, noticing paragraphs as well, which is something that is in progress at the moment and definitely is on our minds.
Yeah, there was a really good session by Big Blue Door at what was it, at Local Gov Drupal Camp. Yeah, and the plan is to massively rationalize what's available and just make it much simpler to use. So I think that will help everyone. Okay,
cool. So we're going to come on to our panel discussion. So we thought we would dive in, and actually, Will, if you stay on camera because you're part of the conversation, you're going to be following up and helping out on the question side. So we've got Ella, Steph, and Paul. They've worked on lots of subsites and microsites. The first question that I'm going to just get a sense from you, and we'll start with Ella, is what use cases have you used for subsites and microsites? If you could give us a sort of sense of your estate that you've sort of created so far, that would be really interesting to hear to kick us off.
Sure, yeah. So we do actually have more microsites than subsites. We have got 7 microsites live at the moment. The first one, as Will said, is Love Essex, which was the website of the Essex Waste Partnership, which was the first microsite that we created, and we did a lot of work on that over a long period of time. We have since launched a number of smaller and quicker microsites for various smaller campaigns and partnerships. We also have our corporate blogs on a microsite, and we have the Essex LGR Hub, which is run in partnership with all of the other councils in Greater Essex. For subsites, we have got 3 subsites live at the moment, one for fostering recruitment, one for digital Essex, and one that we launched very quickly recently for a comms campaign, which was turned around really fast with no dev work. We do also use the subsites content type for things that we probably wouldn't think of as subsites, but just as a more flexible content type for things like our local offer for care leavers, for example.
Is that the overview or a subsite page?
The overview, yeah, just
The
when we need a
overview
bit
one,
more
right?
room for content to breathe.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Thank you. How about you, Paul? I think you said you'd done more subsites. You'd focus more on subsites than microsites. Is that right?
Yeah, although we've got a similar number of microsites. We've got 7 microsites at the moment using LGD microsites, and the main differentiation being that they needed separate look and feel and separate URL to the main Haringey website. So we sometimes call vanity sites or or whatever. They are, or partner sites, or that they have a good reason for separate branding. And they come in all shapes and sizes, as things like the Bruce Castle Museum site, which is probably the biggest and was one of the first ones we did that with the standard LGD build initially, and then we more recently retrofitted it back into microsites. But yeah, we've got museum and then quite a lot of smaller ones, which are kind of, like I say, a lot more infrequently visited and a lot more niche in a way. And some of those have been very quick and easy to set up, and the service hasn't been particularly precious about the design, but others have required kind of custom theming, and we've needed to get a dev involved to do the theming. And that's where the charging for us comes in if we have to bring in one of our devs, because of the way we're internally kind of modeled at the moment. We try and charge that back, although occasionally we do it for free for political reasons in some shape or form. And subsites we use a lot because we've kind of got quite a lot of like the standard ones. I think most councils have got, like, your fosterings and adoptions, but we've kind of done quite a lot of our sections now using subsites. I think we've kind of jailbroken a little bit some of the because we kind of felt, I think, some areas were a bit too restrictive with the kind of standard service landing pages and so on, not being able to add images and various things like that. So we tended to use subsites a bit more. And interestingly, with our new intranet project, it's subsite by default, the actual pages we're using, because we find that we can recreate something that looks and feels very much like a service landing page or service page using subsites as well. So we've kind of gone all around, which is why I say we've got way more subsites now. Again, I guess it depends on your definition.
It'd be good to see some links of that at some point. Sorry, Steph. Paul, if you've got examples, maybe post them in the chat. Sorry, Steph, go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say it's interesting because I was going to say we had just explored using Subsite overview for intranet, like landing pages for services, because we found that like the intranet is more of a communication tool, and the Subsite overview kind of leaned into that more interactive kind of content type. So using it as a content type rather than a separate site kind of thing. So that's kind of what I've been using it for on an intranet. But yeah, I mean, similar to everyone else has said, really, like council-owned services for subsites like fostering adoption, stuff like that. But I think subsites could be explored more as well. Yeah. So yeah, microsites usually are just like partnership websites that I've worked on. Is like public protection website, a box office website. So it's not directly owned by the council, but it's involved in it. But yeah, it's interesting to hear other people use cases.
And what's the most complex microsite you've worked on, Steph? Because you worked across multiple councils as well. Quite a lot of different use cases.
It was actually the public protection one that I've done for Dumfries, because there's a lot of content on there. And working with Rahalian, I actually said we need the content types in here, because microsites by default they only have page builder in there. So I basically Rahalian got all the content types in there so I could build kind of proper pages, because with page overview you can't really link. It's not really good to like link to pages and stuff, like have a good taxonomy. So that was most complex, but using proper templates helped, because I think microsites are a bit free for all when you just got page overview, and it makes it hard to connect pages and stuff. So that was probably the most complex one.
So you were bringing in other like LGD content types, essentially, like maybe service landing page
Yeah.
or
Yeah, we had like, if I think Will's just put it in there, but yeah, like,
Mhm.
your step by steps and all that, and
Mhm.
a bit clunky and stuff. We need to develop them, but essentially it should just work exactly the same as a Drupal site. But yeah.
Okay, interesting. Ella, if I come back to you, it'd be interesting to explore like the governance around deciding whether to go with a subsite or a microsite. Like what have you developed at Essex, and what have you found is sort of working and maybe still a challenge?
Sure, can definitely talk about a lot of that. So
Yeah, I can imagine.
we are we're now part of the Essex Digital Service, which was formed up from tech services and service transformation at the end of last year. And as part of that work, we've got a lot of new governance that's kind of bedding in at the moment. So it's a bit of an evolving answer. Generally, we try to operate from the default position that content should be on our main corporate website unless there's like a good substantive reason why it needs to be on a standalone website. Often a challenging message to land with the organization. You often do get services that just want their own website for their campaign or for whatever it is that they're asking for it for. So we've got a lot of new governance around things like our digital policy, our content strategy, just trying to strengthen some of that stuff that allows us to have that conversation with the organization, and try and land that message with people. In general, the reasons that we might look to either a subsite or a microsite is because the content is too complex and it's going to be easier to navigate if it's in a subsite or a microsite, because the branding is too distinct from our main corporate branding. So if it's a partnership, for example, and it needs to have a very different look and feel, or if the purpose of the content is, rather than just being to inform or to send people through a transactional service, if it is to persuade or inspire or educate, and there's a need to engage people in a slightly different way to standard content on our corporate website.
And have you found any challenges with working with services and service teams around, maybe you're recommending a subsite and they're really, really sticking with, no, we want our own site?
Definitely, yeah. Like I will be honest, we find that sometimes people just will not take no for an answer, that people have a very, very fixed idea of what the digital solution for them is. But a lot of the work that we've been doing in the digital service has been around trying to establish like a single pipeline for all of the work that's coming into the digital service, so we can manage those conversations in a more streamlined way and with a bit more governance and authority behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really interested to hear how other people navigate those conversations, because it's definitely not easy, and it's one of the downsides of being able to spin up websites more easily is that everybody wants one.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Steph, what's your experience of this?
Yeah, I think everyone wants their own website, and it's like, okay, how are you going to actually maintain that in the future? Because I see so many dead, before we all used to it, 404s for websites, like explaining, you actually have to have a team in place to manage this microsite. You can't just like be making it and then it's done. So kind of really explaining to them, like, it won't get a lot of traction on its own, that kind of stuff, and showcasing kind of what Drupal can do on its own, like the corporate website, like how is it not fulfilling a need on the current website, and really showcasing that. But yeah, just explaining the kind of consequences of having a separate website, I think lands quite well sometimes. But yeah, it is a difficult conversation. At Cumberland, we did create a policy, microsite policy, that clearly explains, like, the principles and the considerations, if you want to escalate it and stuff like that. So it's kind of based off the kind of an exemption from gov.uk. They had that as well. So it's kind of based off that. So making that people really work for this microsite, really understand the user needs and the audience, why it's not fulfilled on the corporate website and stuff like that. But, you know, I've worked with the public protection one particularly. I don't know if there's anyone from Dumfries on the call, but we're finding that like the council are doing a lot of the updates because the partnership haven't like they haven't got an actual team that look after the website, so it's heavily reliant on the council actually doing it a lot of the time, which doesn't seem fair. So that's what I've seen in kind of practice. So yeah.
Should we see what you found, Paul, in your experience? So you've got seven microsites. You're using subsites like pretty widely. Like, how do you manage the pipeline or the governance of new microsites or service teams coming to you?
Similar to the other two people who just spoke, I think everyone's got the same kind of. If you've been around in councils for a long time, it's a bit like whack-a-mole when like microsites keep popping up, and then you kind of find out about them too late, and you look at them, they're awful, they're not accessible, they're not compliant, and then, like say, they die a quiet death somewhere and sort of end up in the internet graveyard somewhere with no one keeping it up to date. So we've had a microsite development policy for many years, which we've referred people to, but we found that some service areas have just been kind of just wanting to do their own thing anyway. So we've had to kind of, as part of a kind of wider digital policy which has come into place more recently, we've developed a whole new kind of way of working with our services to try and kind of get in there early before they start kind of talking to suppliers and so on. So as soon as we get wind of any kind of microsite, it goes through a certain channel, it goes to a board that needs discussing, sign off as various kind of checklists that we will, I think Steph, you said, we kind of make them work for it a little bit. There are some key reasons, very good reasons for having a microsite as described in terms of like separate branding, separate URL, partnership, that kind of thing. It does something might have a genuine need to be separate from the main website. But yeah, we always start with, can it and should it be on the main website first thing? If not for those reasons, then it's like, okay, what are the functionality? Is there stuff? Can we actually build this in-house using LGD microsites? Because that's a corporate solution for any new microsite coming in now. And then if there are some kind of maybe technical requirements or some crazy deadlines or whatever, resource issues or some other maybe political reason to go outside of the council, then we will still try and work with them and make sure, at least if they are buying a third-party service, that it is as accessible and properly managed and usable as possible. But yeah, that's the general kind of checkpoints, I think, in the decision-making process, which we're heavily involved in. So that's good. That's healthy.
Interesting. Javik was just asking about. You mentioned the board where the the sign off of a new microsite happens. Can you? He wants to know a little bit more about that. Basically.
There's a few. We've got something called. We've got a system of business relationship managers in digital services. We're in digital. They are the kind of intermediary between the service and digital services. So they're supposed to be talking to them regularly and getting the early ideas and early kind of discussions going with them. And then if the service, and then I'll often be involved in that, if there is the service wants to pursue the microsite idea, because subsites are done as BAU, so we can just handle that. But if it's a microsite, it does involve other resources and needs scheduling in and so on. It needs our dev colleagues to be involved, so that needs to come through various sign-offs. And we've got something called Digital Assurance Board and Technical Design Authority, which it goes through. And also because of the spend element, it's going through various kind of spend controls as well at the moment, and even if it's internal spend, just recharging, there's still spend control rules around that at the moment. As with many other councils at the moment, spending a penny can be a tricky business. So yeah, that's what we call them. I guess they're called something slightly different in most councils, but yeah, that's the process.
Thanks, Paul. Will, do you want to come in? There's something you wanted to pick up on. You may want to pick up on. Paul was I think that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few sort of ideas sort of knitted together. But I mean, this is tricky because back in the day, subsites and microsites were very different things conceptually. And Javik had a point here. He said the context was that Subsite was created to do campaign, time-based marketing, comms campaigns. They were very simple things, like almost like one-page things. And if you've ever had anything to do with Gov.uk, they used to have a format called campaign. It's basically what it's available. That's what it's based on. And subsites were, if you wanted to do something grandiose and off-platform and fancy, then you would have to do a microsite. You wouldn't be able to do a subsite. The thing that's changed it is this subsite extras module, which has made subsites a lot more capable than they've ever been. It's not in core, but it's very easy to add to core, and we think we might actually do that. So it just makes it more. You can decide. There's more leeway in the process. What I'd like to do is update the proposition. So I really like the docs that you've all been posting. Like Jamie mentioned the proposition. Steph, you posted yours. If you've got any documents that you're using, please do share them, because we'd love to know what you think about this. It's not just what we think about it; it's all what you're thinking about it. But what I'd like to do is almost like a Cosmopolitan magazine style test. So you're asked like various things like, what does the design need to be like? Does it need a separate URL? Does it need a separate team? How long is this thing going to be around? Is it something that's not related to your council at all? And if you answer mostly A's, it's subsite. If you answer mostly B's, it's microsite. I think it's that kind of thing, because it's still not cut and dried what you would do, but I'd recommend that you do more of one and less of the other if it's a particular kind of thing. Don't know if that makes sense. You know, do you understand what I'm saying there? Yeah. So that's what I'm going to try. What I'm going to try and write anyway. I know I've said a few times I'm going to try and write it, but seem to have a million other things to do before this, so I will get round to it. But in the meantime, if you've got any documents where you've described it, please do share them, and we'll make sure they're all collected together so you can at least see them all. And I think that will give us a really good starting point for something.
Yeah, well, that would be a great follow-up for this meetup as well. So you can just drop them to me in Slack or via email, whichever works for you. It sounds like there are some examples that people are already using. It'd be great to collate a good number of them.
I mean, ultimately, what you don't want to do is have your service go and do something off-platform. And by that, I mean not local quadruple or in any kind, because then it's something you've got to manage. Like your team's got to manage, but it's harder to manage. That's what these things were built for. So you could bring these things closer to you. You've got more oversight of them. They're easier to maintain long term. So I don't think you can make them really difficult to get. But a few of you said, a few hurdles, a few pointed questions are really important so that you get the right thing. So there's a balance here, isn't there?
Yeah. So we're coming up to, we're going to do community news at the end. So we're kind of coming up to the end. I'm curious to hear from other people in the room. So if you've got a question, you can either drop it in the chat, and Will, if you could monitor the chat a bit more.
Yeah, we'll do.
Bring those up. Or just raise your hand. So there's a react function in Zoom. If you click on the heart button, there's a raise hand function. If you've got questions for Steph or Paul, Anna, or all of them. Steph, in the meantime, while we're waiting for people to step in to ask questions, can you talk about the sort of once you've launched a subset or microsites, like how does that work from a maintenance point of view? So both content and like the technical side. Like, do you leave subsites over to a service team, or is it still sort of managed centrally? Maybe microsites might be quite different. Like, how do you manage those things?
Yeah, subsites, I guess. Like I did one recently for Dumfries. It was about a white sands project, which was kind of led by, that's like a huge regeneration thing in Dumfries. And usually I'll be like, that's a news article, doesn't need to be a subsite. But there was a lot of need from residents to want to know more about it and have updates. So we basically had a working group and it was like, right, comms, you are going to own this. And we provided like a blog style updates and stuff like that. So that scenario was good because we knew they were going to own it and update it. For other stuff, I guess, like I think microsites is where I always find when I leave clients and I go back. or a kind of check-in or whatever, it's like there's never been a proper like management around it. It's always been stuck onto the digital team to manage, which, you know, you got some that have got like 10, 15 microsites on top of their corporate website as well. Things go out of date quickly, or then the microsite starts to replicate content that's on the corporate website. It's just a bit of a mess. So I think that's where I think really it needs to be honed in on the policy of a microsite and, like, you know, why you need it and making sure there's a proper team in place, because I think that's where it falls down quite a lot. Subsites, not so much, because it's like it's just like another content type, really, isn't it? Like, really. So it's not really that kind of the service will manage it because they can, you know, visibly see it on the website every day. So yeah, I guess mixed, really. I think microsite more so needs to be better on the maintenance of it. So yeah, I don't know what everyone else thinks.
I think, Steph, some people don't realise that when you create a new page or a new site, then you've got to maintain that site over time.
Yeah.
It is an overhead. And some of the services I remember talking to in Brighton, it's like, oh, I'll have this new thing, this new thing, this new thing. Like, they're not going to be around to maintain these things. They're going to be on my backlog to maintain forever, you know, however long, and then they'll break at some point. So I think it's just making that really clear, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's like, I know councils love the branding around things, and like, oh, we need to, you know, the new initiative to get people to cycling or something. It's like, oh, we need a logo, we need this and that. It's like people just want to know, you know, what they can get out of this and what, you know, how can it not be served on the corporate website. So yeah, sorry about my voice, by the way. I was shouting at the football last night, so my voice is all like
I think we were all shouting at the football. That's right.
Yeah.
Let's hear from Ello at Essex. Do you have is that part of the considerations, I guess, in terms of setting up, and then how does it work with microsites and subsites?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the most part, microsites are maintained by devolved editors in the services, because, as Steph said, we've got limited capacity. We can't maintain like an ever increasing number of microsites in addition to everything else we do. We're actually trying to make that a much more focused part of the initial conversation, trying to get people to understand, like you were saying, that a website is a commitment. You have to maintain it, and there's actually a substantial amount of work involved in doing that well, and trying to help services make sure that they've got a realistic plan for how they're going to meet that need, so that they can maintain that well in life. And if they can't, then that should be a consideration about how we're meeting the need they've got, because you should only create as much content as you can maintain well.
Do those conversations happen honestly? I can imagine, you know, sometimes you kind of go, yeah, we'll manage it, don't worry.
It's challenging. It's challenging to get them to happen realistically and at the right level, and in a way that is then maintained throughout the life of that website.
Have you found anything that works in those early conversations? You said you've made it a lot clearer part of those early conversations. Is it a series of quite specific questions that you're asking, or is it who you're asking?
I think it's a bit of both. So I don't think I have like a perfect answer to that at the moment. We are in the process of setting up a new design and technical assurance process for new pieces of work, and this will be part of that decision making around making sure that we've had that really realistic conversation with the service about how they're actually going to maintain content in life.
Okay. We've got a couple of hands up. Paul, I haven't come to you in this round, but we're going to come to the hands. So Sanjeev, your hand's up, been up for a while. What would you like to know? What would you like to ask our panel?
Sure. No, thank you. Thanks very much. Just so from RBKC, Kensington and Chelsea Council. So we're in the process of putting the subsites module in place. We've got 3 microsites, but a lot of the microsites that either we have or our sort of partner site, which is WCC, which is Westminster Council. It comes up with bi-borough and tri-borough based services, where you need both logos on the sites. thankfully, actually, Westminster Council's got they've now put a governance board in place, which includes procurement, IT, networks, and a whole lot of other teams who meet periodically and will decide whether a proposal is fit to be a microsite, for example, because there's a slightly bigger problem, I think, with microsites at Westminster Council. Basically everything that you've already mentioned about sort of sites just sort of going. Just being left and then not having the owners anymore and not knowing and also services not really being aware of what to do with them thereafter. So we're kind of benefiting from that governance, because certainly for by-borough stuff, which is great. And we're kind of looking to replicate a very similar model at Kensington Chelsea as well, purely because regs change, accessibility guidelines and change, and things break, and then there's nobody and no budgets to fix those things thereafter. So yeah.
Thanks, Angie. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Tamara, you're just very close, aren't you?
Yes.
RBKC. Yeah. What's your question? Did you have a question?
Yes. So yeah, hi guys. My name is Tamara. So I work alongside Sanjeev in the web team. Mine was a quick one. So a few people mentioned that they have devolved content editing for their subsites and microsites. I was wondering, how do you make sure that the devolved content editors are maintaining a good standard of content, a good standard of writing that meets the gov.uk standards? Because I understand, we're all small teams, our team's small as well. And yeah, so how do you maintain that quality?
Great question. I'm going to come to Paul to start with, see what your thoughts of this on. And just to say also that there was a session at the Accessibility Meetup last week, which Graham Booth did on accessibility training for content editors, particularly around microsites, as part of training potential microsite editors in service teams, and getting them, sort of answering your question a little bit. So that is on our YouTube channel now. But Paul, what's your approach?
So for the main website and the new intranet, we are mostly centrally managing all content. So requests come through ticketing system and we update it centrally. Prior to our moving to LGD a couple of years ago, for the main website, we did have devolved content editing, and we still do on our old intranet, which is still in its final weeks. And we did find it was very inefficient overall, because you have to train and support everybody, you have to fix all the problems they create, you find that people are they spend a lot of time creating content which actually in the end shouldn't really be on the website in the first place. So we kind of decided that we will be a bit stricter about everything and have it all funneling through us. There are a few small areas on the external website where it's just kind of regular updates to pages, which so it's not new content or new pages or anything like that. It's just kind of simple routine updates, which we do devolve to trusted kind of editors, but we've gone away from devolved. However, having said that, on microsites, we do a lot of those microsites that we create, we give the keys to edit those directly to the services once we build them, unless they decide they want to pay us to update it. So again, it's kind of part of that sort of initial discussion around charging and so on. And we are quite keen to obviously remind people that if they don't keep it up to date and it doesn't meet a good standard then we will be reviewing it on a kind of annual basis and kind of having a look at it with the business relationship managers. And so sites can be pulled down if they're not being looked after. That's the other part of the digital policy.
And do you do any training up front, like ahead of a microsite launch or as part of the development of a new microsite? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, we'll do. I'll show people the ropes in terms of how to use local gov Drupal. We were talking about, I think a little while ago, having a kind of driver's license type of system in place where you kind of train people up and they have to meet a certain standard before we give them full-on access as well. I quite like that model, but I think overall we kind of didn't do any kind of rigorous costing, but kind of made more sense just to kind of channel it through the central team in most cases. But yeah, think what else? I mean, I think I think we'll, as things flex, certainly on a new intranet, we're getting a lot more pushback from services who want to edit their own stuff. And I think that that's going to be an interesting conversation in the next 6 to 12 months, as people have been used to having a bit more free reign on the intranet in particular. The other thing that we do offer, certainly with the microsites as part of the kind of package of getting an LGD microsite, is we give them access to analytics, Looker Studio reports, and Site Improve as well. So they get regular reports on the quality of their content in the context of things like broken links, at least. So they can go in and fix anything that gets broken after launch. So they also have that to work with.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Thank
Steph, anything
you.
to add?
Yeah, I mean, what I've done in the past is kind of make microsite changes part of like the content request form that content teams have, so they can state, what microsite do you want changed to? So they got oversight of the changes that are being made on a microsite, including the intranet as well. And also made sure that these microsites have accessibility statements as well. Because I guess if they're not accessible, the kind of onus is on the council, right? That if they get audited and stuff, so like making that really clear as part of the policy that you need to make sure it's accessible. But yeah, like Paul, I do training, hand over the keys mostly to these teams, but like I say, I do make sure the content team have oversight with any changes coming through, like through the content request form. But yeah, I think it's a bit of a wild west. So like I said before, like strict policies around it is key, really.
Thanks, Steph. Ella, what about you? We'll give you the last word, and then we'll probably move to wrap up.
I quite similar to Paul, actually. So we centrally maintain our main corporate website and our intranet, and it's really only microsites and some subsites where we devolve. We would train people up during the creation process, work with them quite closely initially until we're reasonably confident that they're at least meeting our kind of basic standards. And we are, as part of the design assurance process I mentioned, bringing in some kind of formal in-life reviews, and part of that review will be our content standards still being met. And similar to what Paul was saying, if content standards aren't being met and content isn't actively being maintained, then ultimately the sanction would be to take the site down.
Has that happened yet, or because you're formulating this process, that it's not
No,
there to sort of
the policy is in the final rounds of sign off at the moment. So this is something that's coming in at the moment.
Yeah, interesting. So maybe good to check back in a year on how these things are evolving. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Just quickly on that, we do have one that we are in the process of having those conversations with, because since we're on the site, there's still lots of content coming soon and MT type issues, which we've escalated, and we are having those kind of conversations now.
Okay,
so it's going to be an interesting one to see how that plays out. Will our policy genuinely have teeth, or is it or not? That's going to be an interesting thing.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna move to wrap up. I want to leave the three of you with a very simple question. So just a short answer for this is like, what one feature or one improvement to either subsites or microsites would you love that would sort of make your lives better? Is there something that really, if I ask that customer, is there something immediately jumps out? There might not be, because they're great, but there might well be. I don't know who wants to go first. So this is a very quick one. Steph, go for it.
Yeah, maybe like on microsites, more out of the box, like flexible templates and stuff. Not just page builder, but subsites, like more flexibility on the menus. I think it's been fixed actually, like when you create a page and you have to like put it in the menu, and then it's not, when you do a guide, the guide pages aren't automatically breadcrumb to the subsites. There's little technical things like that as well, and components to how they look as well and work. I think there needs to be work on that as well.
So that's sort of those little things that help create pages and breaking out a site, make it a bit quicker and less sort of
Yeah.
jump around.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Beth. Paul, how about you? One thing to make your life easier.
I think this maybe only affects those of us who are kind of using it a lot, and those of us who are kind of in the middle using both microsites and subsites and main kind of websites. But I guess over time, just inevitably, the things have kind of deviated a little bit between the two. So we've done some really cool stuff on the main website, and then we haven't quite done it on the microsite, or vice versa, and just kind of sort of bringing them back together and kind of making sure they're as aligned as they possibly can be a bit of a challenge. That's probably just more. I'm not sure there's an easy answer to that, to be honest. So it's just one thing we're thinking about at the moment.
Thanks, Paul. And Ella, what about you?
Oh, I will +1 to both what both Paul and Steph said, but I would add the thing that I would like. I'm a bit scared someone's going to tell me that you can do this already, and I don't know. I just don't know how. But I would like to be able to create draft versions of live pages on microsites when you need to update content.
Yeah,
Lots of nodding there, Ella.
Yeah, like preview links and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Okay.
annoying, yeah.
So again, it's like bringing what we've got in LGD into microsites.
Yeah.
Which is definitely on the. I don't think it is possible yet, but it's definitely something that's.
I think workflows on the cards, which would bring some of that. I think Finn might be nodding or not nodding. I don't know. Are you keeping notes of all these asks, by the way? Or are we going to?
We're recording, so.
Okay, we'll just get a transcript. Okay, I was just frantically typing in the background.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Okay, Steph, Paul, Ella, thank you so much for sharing so honestly and openly your approaches and work and thinking